Okay, so good morning officially. We're going to start with our harmonization reading, and it's from the book Our Daily Bread, Pão Nosso, and it's text number 9. No, it's supposed to be 10. Yes, 10. Fraternal sentiments. Now, about brotherly love, we do not need to write to you. Yourselves have been taught by God to love each other. Paul, in the first letter to the Thessalonians, chapter 4, verse 9. A strong contradiction which disorganizes human contribution towards the building of Christianity is a sectarian tendency that annoys a great number of its followers. If there were more reflection and more attentiveness to the teachings of Jesus, then those unjustifiable battles would be diffused forever. Even today, due to the manifestations from the spiritual plane towards the renovation of the world, individuals and groups of people appear to seek formulas from the beyond, which would enable them to enter the realms of pure fraternity. What are the enlightened companions waiting for in order to effect true brotherhood? Many people overlook the fact that legitimate solidarity is scarce in places where there is little spirit of service and where there is an excess of preoccupation with criticism. Many well-known organizations are drawn into disturbances and dissolution because of a lack of mutual help in the areas of comprehension, work, and goodwill. Is there a lack of assistance? No. Every honest and generous project resounds in the higher spheres, luring cooperative, self-sacrificing workers to its aid. Where there is an invasion of disharmony, in an organization of goodwill, the individuals involved should blame themselves for not fulfilling their commitments or for their indifference in giving assistance and service. Let no one ask heaven for recipes of fraternity, because the sacred and immutable formula is already known to us through the words, love each other. So let's do our initial prayer. Dear Father, dear Master Jesus, dear mentors of our house, we thank you for the opportunity to be here today. We thank you for the love you give us, for all the help you give to all those who ask. And we ask that we might be able to have discernment in order to ask for the right things, in order to ask for strength to face our trials, to ask for opportunities to practice our virtues. Every time that we become weak and ask for favors, we are not helping ourselves. So we ask that our guardian angels keep helping us discern what is really better for us, as opposed to what we want. Dear Lord, thank you for all the friends who are here today, present and online. And may we all have an enlightening talk where everybody can participate and from which we can draw teachings from Jesus that will make a difference in our daily lives. So be it. Oh. All right. Long time no see. Happy New Year, Hannah.
I don't remember the last time I could do.
Happy New Year.
I don't remember the last time I came to here.
All right. Okay, so today we're going to talk about the parable of compassion and how we understand the virtue of compassion. So the first thing that we're going to reflect on is, what is compassion? What's compassion?
What's the question?
What's compassion?
Show affection to somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, to be sensible for the other one, to see the other situation and try to understand it, to put it good, to think how you can deal with this. I don't know. That's another thing. It's like, it's like empathy, something like that. I don't know.
Okay, but
Okay, but it's yeah.
empathy might be
Everything is
involved.
connected.
Yeah, empathy might be involved there. Is compassion the same as pity? Pena, dó.
Definitely not.
No? What's the difference? See, I already knew the answer was going to be no, so I had the next question
I
prepared.
think pity is it's a bad feeling.
Why? Why is it bad to feel pity
Because
for
I think
someone?
it's not a healthy.
But why? Just because?
No, because I think everyone has your reason to leave some situation or to have some condition. And it's completely different than compassion. When you have a compassion, you try to understand the situation and try don't judge the situation. When you have a pity, you feel like the other, oh, poor guy, something like that. Like it's not his,
Deserve. It doesn't deserve.
but it's not true. You know it's not true. Everyone has what they deserve.
Yeah, so that expression we have in Portuguese, ninguém merece. we need to get rid of that, right?
You know, sometimes when I am with kids and they do something I don't like, I say, ninguém merece. Não, eu acho que eu mereço. Eu mereço. Senão não estariam fazendo, né? Eu tenho que merecer.
I think that compassion, you are looking to the other in the same level. And pity, you are looking top down, right?
Yeah, that's true.
Exactly. Yes?
Another one that I see pity is like feeling sorry for somebody without taking action. And compassion is you take action towards that person.
You just completed the whole thing. That's exactly it. Pity is when you just feel sorry for someone, and it's usually exactly that. Oh, poor person. Right? Oh, poor him. Oh, poor her. But when I say that, and when I do this, even if I don't realize it, even if it's subconsciously, I'm feeling better than the person. Right? And like Moa said, compassion at the same level, and empathy is involved because I try to put myself in the other person's place to try and understand what they're feeling, and that brings me the will to do something about it. Right? So it's accompanied by a strong desire to alleviate the suffering from the other person. That's compassion. When I pity someone, I don't have that feeling that I want to alleviate, because if it were me, I would want help. Okay? This one, you don't need to answer. We can answer just to ourselves. Which one do I feel more often? Pity or compassion? Or used to before this? Right? So this one is a self-reflection. Which one do we feel more often?
Or which one do you think that you feel and which one you really feel?
Yeah. And that is, again, the principle for self-reflection, right? This is why we ask these apparently tricky questions. It's because if we don't start asking ourselves, we can't identify if we are in the right path or if we need to change something, right? So it's very important to question ourselves. Okay, so now that we're talking about compassion, compassion is a virtue, right? Okay, and then according to the Spirit's book and to all Christian religions, what is the most perfect type that God has offered to man as his guide and model? If it's a virtue, who was the most virtuous person that God gave us so that we can follow the example? Shortest answer in the book. Right? Short and sweet. Jesus. But what does it mean to be the moral guide and model of humanity? Yeah, he was. He was tops. He was great. But what does it mean? What does it mean that he was our guide and model? You, Kiko. So what? So what? Is it enough? Is it enough just to have a picture, a statue of Jesus, and he's the man?
Just trying to follow his attitudes, his ways to live, to treat people, to everything.
Yeah.
Just try to have a mirror as a Jesus and try to see yourself.
That was exactly the question, and that's exactly the answer. It's very easy to admire someone. Oh, I really admire Gandhi. I really admire Chico Xavier. I really admire whoever. But what does that mean? If it's just, wow, he was really cool, it doesn't mean anything. It's not meaningful. It's just an empty
What's the
admiration.
opposite of pity, for example? Because sometimes we put ourselves in a step whose Jesus is in the top. So it's the opposite way to see them. Like Jesus obviously don't have a pity to us.
Definitely not.
But when you
Only
have the
compassion.
opposite, like,
He's unattainable.
Yeah.
He's my idol. Yeah, and that's the thing. When we admire someone, and I'm not talking about Kardashians and stuff, please. I'm talking about real, virtuous people, like Jesus, like Gandhi, St. Francis of Assisi, St. Augustine, and so on. We can have two attitudes. One of them is, they are so high up, I'll never get there, so I just do this. Or the right attitude. I wanna use them as my model. And I ask myself, what would Jesus do in this situation? What would St. Francis of Assisi do in this situation? So that is when we really have them as models and not just idols.
Most part of the greatest religious Christians
Beliefs, yeah.
beliefs, they see Jesus as God, right? So God, Jesus, and the Holy Spirit.
Yeah, only Catholics, the Trinity, the Holy Trinity.
No, others also, like the 7 Days Adventists, they also believe that.
Jesus is God? I thought it was just Catholics.
No, I'm not sure about Protestants, but it's kind of similar. So they see as the favorite son.
Yes,
right? Yeah. So not as we can understand that he was created as simple and ignorant as us. So that's really a model and guide, right?
Yeah, he's just the older brother we should look up to.
Yeah.
Basically. And he sets the best example we've ever had, right? And again, always bringing it to ourselves. What does his attitude mean to me? How can I emulate? How can I copy, or how can I follow into his footsteps, right? Then, question 627. Since the true laws of God have been taught by Jesus, what is the use of the teachings given by spirits? Have they anything more to teach us? Right? Because first Moses came, 10 Commandments, and then some human laws, Mosaic laws that aren't divine laws. Then Jesus came and corrected all that. And Jesus taught us everything we need to know. Why do we need Spiritism then? If Jesus taught everything we were supposed to learn, what can the spirits teach us? That is the why, to remind us. But what can spirits teach us if Jesus already said everything? What can the spirits teach us? Next, okay. So let's see what the answer is, and it's a fairly long answer. The teachings of Jesus were often allegoric and conveyed in parables, because he spoke according to the time and place in which he lived. The time has now come when the truth must be made intelligible for all. Right?
Because you can interpret it.
Did he say?
Yeah.
Did he say everything that needed to be said? Yes, he did.
But
Did we understand?
No, yeah.
Different thing, right?
But do you know, even nowadays, when you do the gospel at home, sometimes you read some passage from some spirit, you say that doesn't make sense, that. And Bruno, Renata, you need to remind that it were right in 180, I don't know where.
More than 160 years ago.
Okay, we didn't have
a whole
this
chapter. There's a whole sub-chapter in the Spirit's book about duels, about duels. They have been outlawed for more than 100 years, but it was a very important issue at the time.
Yeah.
There's a whole chapter just about that. But again, we evolve. So thank God we don't need that chapter anymore, right?
Yeah.
Yay. So let's see. They continue with the answer. Yeah, I forgot I'm not using a computer. It is necessary to explain and develop the divine laws because few among you understand them and still fewer practice them. Right? Our mission is to reach the eyes and ears of all in order to confound pride and to unmask hypocrisy of those who assume the outward appearances of virtue and of religion as a cloak for their turpitudes. Cloak é manto. You cover yourself so it looks like something that it's not. Right? So they continue.
What is
turpitudes? In Portuguese, torpitudes, like
okay.
everything that is rotten, everything that is bad.
Pode traduzir aí?
Translate Portuguese
Yeah.
into something understandable. See, and that's why we need them to explain what Jesus was saying. Because, yeah, sometimes we don't understand our own language. So it's everything that is rotten, everything that is bad and wrong. We are charged to prepare the reign of good announced by Jesus, to furnish the explanations that will render it impossible for men to continue to interpret the law of God according to their passions, or to pervert the meaning of what is wholly a law of love and kindness. Have we as humanity ever interpreted the law of God according to our passions? Right? Have we ever done that in history? And to pervert the meaning of what's wholly a law of love and of kindness. Have we done that too? Have we painted God as a vindictive father who, if you make a mistake, you have to pay? Yeah. Before Jesus, that's pretty much all there was, and then he comes and tells us that God is love. That was like 2,000 years ago. After 2,000 years, do we still think God is punishing us? Are we still afraid of God when we should be loving him because he loves us? So that's another reflection for us. So that's what the spirits came to do with Spiritism, to clarify, to help us understand what Jesus really meant in those parables, in those allegoric figures of speech he used. What was he really trying to say? So, we are going to see the parable of compassion, also called the Good Samaritan. Everybody knows the parable of the Good Samaritan, right?
I don't remember reading that. Okay.
Okay, having that in mind, we're going to read the parable first, and then we're going to read the interpretation, the exegesis that Spirit Honório made for Projeto Espiritizar, okay? Which goes way beyond our understanding. Well, mine, at least. So the parable is in Luke chapter 10, verses 25 to 37, and it starts. And behold, a certain lawyer stood up and tested him, saying, Teacher, what shall I do to inherit eternal life? And we were talking about this yesterday in the book club, about all the times they tried to test. Like this sentence or
This, yeah, the same sentence in Portuguese. A good Samaritan em
Yeah.
português.
O bom samaritano.
Não sei, mas como é que é essa passagem aí?
E eis que um doutor da lei, um advogado da lei, se levantou e o testou dizendo, mestre, o que eu devo fazer para merecer o reino dos céus, a vida eterna?
Só porque eu queria saber a passagem em português. Eu não consegui alcançar a passagem em português. Não.
That's because it's only the first verse. We'll keep going.
You will remember.
Don't worry, you will recognize it. Jesus, said to him, what is written in the law? What is your reading of it? So, of course, pure spirit, angelic intelligence, how can we ever dream of competing? So they were trying to trick him. He answered with another question, right? So what do I do? What do you think you should do? And then the man answered. He said, he repeated ipsis literis the law. So you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your strength, and with all your mind, and your neighbor as yourself. So he basically just repeated like a parrot. Blah, 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 blah. right? And then, and he, Jesus, said to him, "You have answered rightly. Do this and you will live." There, bang, done, right? But do you think the guy who was trying to trick him is going to be happy with just that? Of course not, because he's trying to test Jesus. But he, wanting to justify himself, said to Jesus, "And who is my neighbor?" Because the law says, love God above everything else and your neighbor as yourself. In Portuguese, we say o próximo, não o vizinho, né? So, in Spanish?
Right.
Okay. So, your neighbor as yourself. So the guy wasn't happy, and he's like, okay, and who is my neighbor? Who should I love as myself? And now comes the parable. Then Jesus answered and said, "A certain man went down from Jerusalem to Jericho and fell among thieves, who stripped him of his clothing, wounded him, and departed, leaving him half dead." Yeah. Oh. Okay. Now, by chance, a certain priest came down that road, and when he saw him, he passed by on the other side. Likewise, a Levite, when he arrived at the place, came and looked, and passed by on the other side. But a certain Samaritan, as he journeyed, came where he was, and when he saw him, he had compassion. So he went to him and bandaged his wounds, pouring oil and wine. And he set him on his own animal, brought him to an inn, and took care of him. On the next day, when he departed, he took out 2 denarii, gave them to the innkeeper, and said to him, "Take care of him, and whatever more you spend, I will come again. When I come again, I will repay you." So, which of these 3 do you think was neighbor to him who fell among the thieves? And the lawyer said, "He who showed mercy on him." Then Jesus said to him, "Go and do likewise." Right? Oh, yeah. Oh, sorry. Sorry. Okay. Right? So, the Samaritan showed compassion. So now, we are going to do quite a few reflections on this, all the elements of this parable. Okay? So we're going to look at who is the man who was going down, who is the priest, who is the Levite, what does on the road mean, what does the Samaritan mean, and so on. So they are all symbols, and we're going to look at all the symbols. Here we go. So then Jesus answered and said, "A certain man went down from Jerusalem to Jericho." So the man, right? The first one that is underlined. Who do you think is the man? Us in general.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So it's the human being, right? Both our essence and our ego. Any person, any of us, we are all the men who went down from Jerusalem to Jericho. And went down. This is another symbol. Do you have any idea what it could possibly mean? So again, this is a very deep interpretation of the parable from the psychological side, okay? okay, to help us understand what the symbolic language that Jesus used, what it meant.
So if you are talking about ego, maybe when Tao is coming inside us, I don't know.
The movement of looking within to find one's essential meaning. That's exactly what it is. When we go down inside of ourselves.
Deep to yourself.
Exactly. When we start asking ourselves. Right? When we try to find the best we have inside, our essential being. Exactly. Now, Jerusalem and Jericho, I am not going to make you think about it because it wouldn't be fair. So, Jerusalem represents a luxurious city, the temple, political power, superficiality. Okay? And Jericho represents the simple city, surrounded by nature. It's our existential meaning. So now it makes sense that he went down from superficiality to try and find his existential meaning. Right? Moment we realize that no matter how much we travel, no matter how many material things we have, no matter how many relationships we have, no matter whatever we do is not bringing us peace, like real, true inner peace. So that's the moment we usually realize there must be something else. What am I not doing right to get that peace? And then we decide to go from our superficiality to try and find our existential meaning. So what is it that is going to bring me that inner peace that I've been looking for and I can't find in the world? Right? Okay. Now, and just symbolically speaking, in terms of going down from one to the other, even like geographically, Jerusalem is actually about 2,000 feet, 2,000 meters above sea level. And Jericho is like way down there.
Okay.
So even geographically, it is really to go from a higher place to a lower place. Okay? And fell down among thieves, who stripped him of his clothing, wounded him, and departed, leaving him half dead. Okay, so the first one that is underlined, fell among thieves. So we are trying to go down within ourselves to find, yeah. So we're trying to go down to go from superficiality to find our essential beings. So what could possibly be to fall among thieves? Who could be the thieves? Or what?
Struggles.
Not exactly. Our struggles, we end up struggling because of the thieves.
Passion.
The thieves are our passions in the sense of the egotistic feelings, pride, envy, lack of patience, anger. Those are the thieves. So when we fall among thieves, this represents the action of being weakened by the tendencies of the subpersonalities. What subpersonalities?
Seu ego mascarado, o ego é o que você finge ser, mas não.
Not exactly. How many times have we incarnated?
I don't know. I have no idea.
Once?
No.
Twice? 3, 4.
Thousand.
Every incarnation we have a persona. Like right now, from 1974, TBD, I'm Renata. Before, my personality was someone else, and so on and so forth. So the sub-personalities are the every little bit that I bring from all of those incarnations. This Renata that I am today, this Renata that I am today is just a product of all my previous sub-personalities. Okay? Does it make more sense now? So it represents the action of being weakened by the tendencies of the sub-personality. So all those egotistic feelings that I've been bringing from way back then that are usually responsible for my struggles. For a person who is not jealous, who is not envious, does it bother them if their neighbor buys a brand new car? It makes no difference. They're not jealous or envious. For someone who wants to have more and more and more, does it bother them that their neighbor buys a brand new car? Oh, yes, it does. Right? So our egotistic feelings are responsible for the struggles. Because a person who is not envious, zero struggle. A person who is, yeah, they are going to struggle with that fact. Okay? So those thieves, our egotistic feelings, they are a product of all that we've been bringing from way back then, and that we can change and transform as long as we go down from Jerusalem to Jericho to find them within us, right? Okay, then stripped and wounded him. So these are the movements of self-depreciation and guilt. That feeling of worthlessness, not good enough, never going to be good enough. Or no, I've been such a bad person. I don't deserve anything good. Right? That's what those egotistic feelings sometimes do to us. They sometimes lead us to a lot of guilt. So thank God for the law of, forgetting what we were before. And self-depreciation, which is very connected to guilt, not feeling good enough, not feeling worthy of anything. And that's what these thieves do to us if we fall prey to them, right? Okay. Then departed. This represents the tendencies of the sub-personalities to appear and depart all the time. Are we absolutely constant all the time? I'm patient all the time. Or impatient all the time. Angry all the time. So these tendencies, many times, they come and go, like a pendulum. Right? They come and go. I wake up the most patient person in the whole entire world. And then after 10 minutes, my teenage son
for 2 minutes.
pushes all my 25 buttons at the same time. Right?
Right.
So this idea is, again, these tendencies that come and go. Come and go, okay? And again, it's not that we have to get rid of them. They can come and go. In our evolutionary state, this is normal. What we can do is to work within ourselves so that they will come and go less and less and less, right? And leaving him half dead. So it's the emotional state of existential emptiness. No matter what I do, I don't feel fulfillment. No matter what I do, I don't have peace of mind. So as time goes by, this ends up in existential emptiness. Who am I? What am I doing here? What's the purpose of all this? Why do I need to suffer? Why do I need to struggle? Why does God do that to me? And this existential emptiness, it can progress to many other things. It can progress to depression, it can progress to suicidal tendencies, because what's the point of all of this? I don't want to play anymore, I don't want to do this anymore. So this can evolve into something a lot more serious if we're not careful. So if we don't reflect on the problem, if we just, sweep it under the rug and hide our faults, our defects, when we realize that we have a flaw, first thing we want to do is get rid of it. I don't want it. I don't want to be that. I don't want to be impatient. I don't want to be angry. So I want to destroy that. And that's not what we need to do. What we need to do is admit, realize, and every time it comes up again, right, the idea of coming and going, appearing and disappearing, every time it appears again, I give it a good hug and I say, hey, buddy, let's talk. Right? Yeah. I can hug my anger at the same time I hug my teenage son.
I'm hungry.
Look, this subconscious.
Yeah, I was thinking exactly the same thing. I was like, is it my subconscious? So as I hug my anger, I can hug my son at the same time and tell him I love you no matter what. Okay. Now, by chance, por acaso, a certain priest came down that road, and when he saw him, the man, he passed by on the other side. Okay.
By chance.
There's no by chance, I agree with you. However, in this parable, it's a symbol.
I know, like.
But a symbol for what? I think the best word that would describe it in English is whatever. So it's the superficial contact with existential questions of life. Oh, that's too deep. I don't want to think about it. When your friends are having a conversation about moral principles or whatever, and you're like, oh, that's too much work. I don't want to talk about that. I want to talk about carnival. I want to talk about movies. I want to talk about something else. So when we don't want to face the existential questions of life, when we don't want to look within ourselves, and that there could be a whole lot of reasons why we don't want to look within ourselves. But this is how we deal with many of our problems. If something happens, we just dismiss it. We say, it happened, whatever. Don't care. Next time. I'll think about it next time. I don't want to think about it now. And then we keep making the same mistake because we don't want to face what is causing the problem. I don't want to deal with the cause of the problem. I'm going to keep making the same mistake. Right? Doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result is the definition of craziness, insanity. Right? If you do the same thing, how can you expect a different result? And if you don't want to face the cause of the problem, you are going to keep doing the same thing. If you're not reflecting on what needs to change or how to change, and you don't change, you're going to keep making the same mistake again and again and again. Not you, we. But then eventually, they catch up with us, right? And if we choose not to learn and continue doing the same thing, it will result in suffering. right? A certain priest, it's the mask of Puritanism, okay? So who is the priest? Who is a priest? Who is any priest? Who are priests? Or who are they supposed to be? Servants of God, right? In this parable, like when Jesus, by saying that the priest who's supposed to be God's representative, God's servant on earth, if the priest just, goes like this and walks on the other side, is it really a servant of God? So this is why it says it's the mask of Puritanism. I'm a very religious person, but I'm not going to help that person because they don't deserve it. They're not good, not a good person, don't deserve it. I'm not going to help, but I am God's servant. I'm faithful to God. I'm a God-fearing person. Okay, so we judge, we put on our mask of Puritanism as if we were perfect, and then we pick who deserves and who doesn't deserve. Passed by on the other side. It's the mass movement of denial of any weaknesses of the ego. So again, the attitude of picking. You deserve, you don't deserve, you're good, you're not good. So I am perfect, so I can tell who's good who's bad. Because I'm God's servant. I rock. Plus, when I make a mistake, it was just a mistake. When somebody makes the same mistake, they're bad. I just made a mistake, but someone else is bad. So that's the mask of Puritanism, when we think we are above, right? Then, likewise, a Levite, when he arrived at the place, came and looked and passed by on the other side. Okay, we know what is a priest, but what is a Levite?
The law.
It's a member of the tribe of Levi. Right? Question solved. Yeah, right. Okay, so as you know, the Jewish were divided in 12 tribes and so on. A Levite comes from the tribe of Levi, but they were sort of assistants to the priests who were responsible for organizing the temple. They were, what is it called in English? In Portuguese is something like coroinha, altar boys, let's say. Okay, but here we're not talking kids, we're talking adults. So the Levite is the mask.
Coroinha is not a little
A Levite is the mask of perfection. So the priest is the mask of Puritanism, and the Levite is a mask of perfection. So again, a member of the tribe of Levi, and they assist the priest in the temple or tabernacle. And a tabernacle is similar to a temple, but it can be a movable one, let's say. So why is a Levite a symbol for the mask of perfection? Because they were the ones who made the temple perfect. They were the ones who made the temple beautiful, ready. Okay, so that's why they are the mask for perfection. So when we don't recognize that we make mistakes, we don't see and we don't feel that we are apprentices. But when we know we are apprentices, we learn from the mistake. Because when we don't recognize we are apprentices, that means we think we are already perfect. Right? Or at least we want to be. So it's very easy to point everybody's mistake, but not mine. And many times we just say, oh, I'm not perfect. But all I do is look at other people's mistakes and errors. I don't see myself as an apprentice. I'm already good, I'm done. If I become any better than I am, I'm gonna be better than Jesus. Right? Then, but a certain Samaritan, as he journeyed, came where he was. And when he saw him, he had compassion. Okay, who are Samaritans? Because if we don't understand the context, this will not make sense. Well, it makes sense, but very superficially. But we need to understand. Who are Samaritans?
Aren't they like the outlanders?
They are actually another tribe from Israel. They are also one of the 12 tribes. However, there is a big segregation because Samaritans are like extremely Orthodox. And they only admitted the Pentateuch. The Pentateuch is what contained the laws of Moses. And they rejected all other books to which these were annexed. What is the other book of the Jewish? I can't remember. Talmud? Yeah, well, they have another one. Samaritans don't accept that. They only accept the laws of Moses. To them, that's it. Anything else is out. And according to the other tribes, they are heretics, right? They are wrong. Even though they have the same origin, they were another tribe of Israel. They believed in one God, which at the time, the Jewish were the only ones, because everybody else was polytheist, believed in more than one God. So even though they had the same origin, they grew completely apart because of this belief that they only accepted the Pentateuch. So all the other 11 tribes absolutely hated the Samaritans, including the lawyer who was asking Jesus. So Jesus uses the priest and the Levite as examples of people who were supposed to help, who were supposed to care and didn't. And then he uses a Samaritan, who all the other Jewish absolutely hated. And he says that the Samaritan helped the man, who, by the way, was probably Jewish. Okay? So if we don't understand the context, I remember when I was younger, I always thought that all Samaritans are good, and I couldn't understand why did they say a good Samaritan. If you're Samaritan, you're good, yay! But when you understand the context, that they absolutely hated each other, all the other Jewish saw the Samaritans as inferior. And there's also the passage in the Bible where the Samaritan woman is at a water well, and Jesus comes to her and says, please give me water. And she's like, why are you talking to me? I'm a Samaritan. And Jesus was Jewish, so she was like, Jewish don't talk to Samaritans because they see Samaritans as inferior. Okay, so who is the Samaritan a symbol for? It's the essential being, the inner Christ that we are in essence, and that emanates the strength of God's love in us. Right? So the Samaritan is our essential being, is the good in us. That's why he was there to help. That's why he had compassion for the man. Because he represents the strength of God's love within us. Journeyed. It's a symbol for the essential movement of self-knowledge in search for the existential meaning. So we also use this word, at least in English, our journey to find ourselves. So the went down from Jerusalem to Jericho. So it's our journey, right? It's trying to know ourselves in order to find out what we're doing here. What's the point of all of this? right? Avoiding that existential emptiness. Then the next underline, came where he was. It's the movement of humility and meekness before one's own weakness. So he got out of his way, and instead of just looking and going, he was humble enough to go to the man who was Jewish and probably hated him because he was a Samaritan. But anyway, he went to the man. He was humble enough to go to someone who thought was superior to him. And compassion, the movement of loving oneself. Why oneself and not someone else?
Yourself first.
We can't give what we don't have, right? So first, we need to love ourselves. We need to be aware, we need to have knowledge of our own weaknesses. When I understand myself, when I know what my weaknesses are, I'm able to love myself. I'm able to want to help myself. And then I can help others as well. Does it make sense? Yes? So he went to him and bandaged his wounds, pouring oil and wine. So went to him. It's the compassionate movement of drawing closer to our egotistic feelings. So instead of rushing, come here, buddy, let's have a talk. I was selfish. Why was I selfish? How can I change this? How can I be better next time? And again, the first question, why was I selfish? Ask myself, try to go deep inside and see where that's coming from. Bandaged his wounds. Love, self-care with each emotional pain we feel. Right? So again, not guilt, not self-depreciation, not I'm not worthy, but, why do I feel like this? I deserve to feel better. How can I feel better? Instead of, I'm worthless. I'm a selfish person. I don't deserve anything good. So this, to bandage our wounds, is to care about those egotistic feelings in order for us to transform them in something good. And oil and wine represent the pureness of purpose. They represent our virtues. And at the time, they used olive oil to clean wounds because it's also an antiseptic. Yeah. And they used wine because wine has antioxidants and helps heal the wound faster.
It doesn't mix together.
No, it's actually what was used at the time. Olive oil was used to clean because it's antiseptic, and wine was used, the alcohol helps also, and because of the antioxidants in wine, it helps heal faster. They didn't have the Pantone. Or, yes, no, I'm trying to remember the most common one in English. Pardon me? Polysporin, yes, polysporin. They didn't have triple action polysporin. So, what? No. Back. Yeah, come on. So which of these three do you think was neighbor to him who fell among thieves? And the lawyer answered, he who showed mercy on him. Then Jesus said to him, go and do likewise. Note, the doctor of the law didn't even say the Samaritan. He said, he who showed mercy on him. He couldn't even bring himself to say the Samaritan. He couldn't say any different, right?
label.
Yeah, but he couldn't say anything different than that because it was the Samaritan, but he refused to say the name Samaritan. He couldn't say it was the priest or the Levite because Jesus put him in a very tight corner. So he had to say it was the Samaritan. However, he refused to use the word Samaritan. He who showed mercy on him, right? Because it was just logic. Then Jesus says, go and do likewise, right? So when Jesus invites him to go and do likewise, is this invitation just for the doctor of the law who was prideful and thought he was better than others? Who is that invitation for?
Everyone.
Exactly. All of us, right? So, our final reflections. Again, how do I understand compassion? Right? And these are self-reflections. So, how do we understand compassion? Do we see the difference between compassion and pity? Do we also understand that it starts with us, with feeling like an apprentice instead of feeling guilty? Do we also understand that if I don't have compassion for my own mistakes, how can I be compassionate to someone else? And then, how can I be compassionate to my neighbors? Now, this next question is for us to answer together. Can I change my neighbor? Can I fix their life? My neighbor, biblically speaking, not just the people beside my house. Can I change anybody? Can I fix anybody's life?
Well,
It's hard enough to fix
now
ours.
You can fix their day sometimes.
Do you think you can fix or you can improve?
Improve.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
So, I can't fix and I can't change anybody except for myself. But can I love my neighbor? Can I be compassionate to my neighbor when I have not learned to be compassionate to myself? Can I give what I don't have? Hard, right? And where does compassion start? Yeah, but where? Where does that journey to compassion start? It's actually the beginning of the parable. It's the one that you answered, the meaning.
You go down.
When we decide to go down from Jerusalem to Jericho, when we decide to go from superficiality to find our essential being, that's where compassion starts. Because if we stay in superficiality, if we don't go for the journey, we're just going to stay where we are. Right? We're not going to put the gears in motion. Is it something instantaneous?
No.
It's a journey.
Yes, it is a journey, right? It's not a bus ride, it's a very long journey. Okay? But it has to start. Right? If we don't put the gears in motion, nothing is going to happen. I'm sorry we went over time. Does anybody have any questions, any comments, any experiences to share? No? No? All good? No, but there's always quiet, but he answered the last question, so it's all good. Okay, so I think we'll want to see if the kids have something for us, and if not, we're going to go to class. Kids don't have anything?
Não, eles vão fazer a apresentação, a gente também depois pode
Okay.
levar um pouco.
So let's do our final prayer, and then we'll go for the class. Dear God, dear Jesus, we thank you for one more day incarnated, one more opportunity to learn, to help ourselves and our neighbors, one more opportunity to go down within ourselves, to reflect, one more opportunity to use Jesus' teachings, one more opportunity to be with those we love, to be with those we are learning to love. Dear mentors of our house, we thank you for all your hard work, for all your support, and for all your patience with us as we try to evolve, as we try to improve and embrace ourselves as we are, so that we can become better through our will and God's help. May we all have a blessed week, full of reflections, of accomplishments of personal nature, meditation, and peace of mind. So be Faz falta um computador para você olhar quantos slides já foi,
Ok.
para te mostrar o tempo.
Eu vou trazer. É que eu fiz
Será?
Não, isso tá tudo pronto, mas é que eu encapei ele. Daí para não estar soltando, eu coloquei peso em cima. E aí ficou, né? Fica escondido embaixo da coisa.
Você veria?
Provavelmente.
É porque qualquer coisa, se você não vier, bom, se você vier, eu te mando um reminder, se você não vier, eu posso trazer.
Tá.
Eu venho com certeza.
Você vem?
Certeza.
Você vai fazer a palestra?
Não. Que eu saiba, não.
O Eric.
Você gosta de jogar.
O Eric deve estar também, ele está voltando hoje.
Tá, parou.
Não.